So we are struggling with our guilt factor about having intimacy before we are married. This is a big deal, and I want to address all the church girls because we are really in trouble here. We are in trouble because no one is really prepared to have a real conversation with us about this, and it takes a lot to share and have this conversation. So I want to have it. Now, whether you're a church girl or not, I know that I'm really emphasizing on my church girls in this series, but whether you're a church girl, whether you're a mosque girl, maybe you're just a really spiritual girl, or maybe you're just a girl with a real high moral code. Whatever you are, do not let this put you off. Let's talk about when you feel that you've had sex with a man too soon or too early, or if you are a church girl, you've had sex before marriage. We're going to talk about this a little bit further after this. Hello and welcome back to the Black Swan Relationship Academy. My name is Chengi, and you, my precious one, of course, are my world. I am your dating and relationship expert here at the Black Swan Relationship Academy, where we teach you ladies how to present as a high value, high status, and high worth woman. We love speaking to you on the app. We enjoy speaking to you on discovery calls. We love hearing your stories, so do pick up the phone, go to the website, and book yourself a discovery call. Don't just sit there and watch. We're here to actually help you and actually give you systems and principles and tools that will help you succeed in your relationship, but above all, an education in relationships. We need to be done with dating advice and relationship advice and really get into educating ourselves, hence the Black Swan Nation. This is going to be running on term times. Do join the Black Swan Nation. The links are all in the description below. And in the Black Swan Nation, you will learn how to date and relate like a high value, high status woman, and really understand the psychology, the biology around relationships. Really get educated, because it will change your dating and relationship life forever. Whether you are married, single, or in a relationship, we have something for you. So much going on. I hope you have downloaded the Black Swan app, because as we grow and it builds, it is going to be our primary platform, and I don't want to leave you all behind. So I want you all on that app. Okay, with all of that being said, let's get on with today's video. For the church girls, this is for you. This is an issue because of the sin factor. All men have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. If we could control everything and be the perfect little baby girl Christians, Jesus would not have needed to come, and he definitely needed not to die. This is not to justify that we should live any kind of way. Now, I want you to know that there's a lot of conversations going on about sex and sexuality within the church, and the time has come really for us to really look at it and really face a lot of things. The reality of it is many of us are not waiting, not because we do not have the intention to wait. Maybe it's just because we don't have the discipline to wait. Some of us don't actually believe we need to wait. Whatever your position, it's really important and okay for you to understand that we are all working through to the next level in our walk with God. Even with our spirituality, we are all working things out with fear and trembling. Like I've said to you ladies, and on the podcast I had with Heather Tucker, was simply, I am a woman. I don't claim to be celibate or abstinent. This is not a title that I choose to use for myself. And I've had people say, how do you handle your celibacy? I didn't tell you I was. What I am is a woman of virtue, and I work out my salvation with fear and trembling. It's so important that we give ourselves an opportunity, especially when it comes to things like sexuality, to journey with God on it, to start somewhere and end somewhere, rather than anticipating, oh, I'm Christian now, I don't have sex before marriage, I don't do that anymore, right? That's easy. That's easy to just jump into that way of thinking and say, well, this is how I am now. But it's not easy to walk it out when we run ahead of ourselves. I am right now on a health and wellness journey, a fitness journey. I want to change my body composition. I want to have more muscle than fat. And it has taken me 6 months to even get to this point, and I'm still dissatisfied. But I understand that anything worth having is a journey. I'm not waking up one morning and looking in the mirror and how come I don't have as much muscle as I would like to have. And that's what we're doing with sexuality. How come I am still sexually excited and sexually active, and even though I want to do this, how come I can't win? Because you are putting pressure on yourself and you're living in a lawful way instead of actually having a relationship with God and searching the scriptures for yourself and finding a position in the scriptures for you that has grace, growth built into it. It doesn't matter what anybody has to say about you. You perform for an audience of one. What I want to teach you ladies is how to move in a way that is virtuous, because virtue and virginity and celibacy and all of these other labels are not what are required. Virtue is a matter of the heart. Virtue is about who you present yourself to be to yourself, who you know yourself to be, not who other people think you are. We need to understand that being celibate does not guarantee you a marriage. You don't get a special trophy at the end of it. Being abstinent does not give you any special trophies. You still have to understand relationships dynamics, and understand that sex and sexuality fits into the relationship dynamic. There's a whole pie that makes a relationship. There's so many other factors that make up a relationship, and some of those in many of our relationships are so broken that what we do is we try to fix the sexual part because we feel that is the bit that is making the rest of it broken, when actually we're terrible communicators. We're terrible at vetting. We're terrible at selecting. We're terrible with our self-awareness. We have zero self-awareness. There's so many other things, so many other dynamics that have to be in place in a relationship for it to work. And often the scapegoat is sexuality. Why? Because often the church does not know how to teach people to have relationships. I wasn't taught to have relationships, and the world is equally as bad at teaching people how to have relationships. Relationships are not about sex. Sex is a consummation of a relationship. It is not about that. So we need to be better at having relationships. But the problem is, because we're so terrible, many of us are living with guilt. I've heard this from my clients before. Oh, that relationship fell apart because I had sex with him. Oh, that relationship, if I hadn't had sex with him, God would have blessed that relationship and would have been together. This is a delusion, ladies. It is delusion. It is the voice of guilt at work. When I start to look at how they were doing that relationship in the first place, it was complete nonsense. They were not communicating. They were not showing up authentically. They didn't even know that they had trauma. They were dysfunctional in a million different ways. They had sexual trauma that had not addressed. There were so many other things in that relationship, but it's so easy for us as Christians to say, well, it's because I am being sexually active that I am being punished by God. God is punished. Well, listen, if God is going to be punishing you for sexual activity, he's going to be punishing you for that lie you told, or that truth you did not tell, or that silence in a matter that he wanted you to speak. He's going to be punishing you for every little sin. We would not exist if God was so petty. God is not sitting around with his, marker or sending angels. He's after the complete and full health and transformation of you as a being. And he knows that that is a messy, dirty process. He knows that, like when we're spring cleaning our homes, sometimes we end up with more mess than we started because we're opening drawers and we're putting out stuff. God is not expecting you to be an overnight, and I don't care how long you've been in church or how long you've been saved. It can be a 30, 40-year journey before you figure out for yourself what sex and sexuality means for you. The problem is when we feel guilty, we start to move into dysfunction and dysregulated states that cause us to sabotage the relationship. We start to, some of us, pressure the man for marriage. The moment we are sexually intimate and we create that bond with that man, all of a sudden, the man that we were vetting, the man that we were really figuring out if he is even any good for a lifetime partnership, all of a sudden, this guy has to marry you. Your obsession with marriage is the only obsession because you're hoping that marriage is going to come and cleanse everything that you've done or validate the multiple orgasms that you've had with this man. All of a sudden, the fact that we got married means that, all the sex we were having was not invalid. And so we start to push and pressure this man and this relationship in the direction that it is not going, instead of realizing that I am working things out here. And part of that working out is intimacy with that guy. And I enjoyed it, or I didn't enjoy it, but I still have a relationship. There's a whole other pieces of the pie that need to be in place in a relationship. And I'm going to give you a secret. If all of the pieces that need to be in the relationship dynamic are in place, you are not going to have problems with sex and sexuality. When you are showing up as a high value, high status, high worth woman, most of the time, most men who see that, perceive that, who are wise, who are high value, who are quality, who are purpose driven, are not going to push you to do anything that you are not ready to do. You will find that you will deepen intimacy more naturally because you're looking at the whole thing more holistically than looking at it as just this act that is sinful or not sinful. I want to have this conversation with you mainly in private because I don't want to be misunderstood. This is one of those subject matters that can go either way. I'm trying to keep it within a healthy conversational situation, but I would love, my coaches and I would love to have a conversation with you about your sexuality and how you manage it within the dating and relationship space. We want to help you overcome your guilt because your guilt has become your highest and worst liability. I would go as far as to say that your guilt has become the place of sin. I would like us to believe that when we do not believe that Christ has washed away our sins and that we are indeed free, and that we can go to him in repentance, if that is what we feel we need to do on this journey, and that he will always have his arms open, ready to have a conversation with us. God is not afraid of these conversations. He's not afraid of them. He's not uncomfortable with them. He's pretty happy to have those conversations with you and with me. What we need to be willing to do is have them openly and honestly, not only with God, but in a safe environment, which is the Black Swan Relationship Academy, where you will not be judged in any way, shape, or form.
Simple steps to join Black Swan community. Download the Black Swan app from either Google Play Store or Apple Store. Launch the app and tap on register. Put in your valid information, then tap on continue. Put in the verification code sent to your email to authenticate your account. Then log into your account. Be sure to accept all permissions displayed at installation stage to enjoy all the cool features in the app. You can now enjoy community of high-value women with support from coaches and trainers. Book calls with coaches, chat, post, and interact with the community. Enjoy!
Regardless of your spirituality, you do not get judged here, because we know that a lot of what is happening in our lives is just ignorance and the fact that we don't know any better. I want the sex guilt to stop. I need us as women to be free to own our sexuality and to be free in Christ and free in our spirituality to enjoy the spirituality that goes with our sexuality in a way that is pleasing and acceptable to God and that brings us peace within ourselves. That cannot be gotten by living out a lawful life and experiencing guilt because of it. Now, some men will just choose to pull away and not interface and interact with you. Some men will just think, you know what? I can't deal with this, because the feeling of guilt is creating a wedge between you and a man who in many ways may have been willing in many ways to marry you and be your partner. But this guilt has now become a thing between you and him, and he feels the guilt and he internalizes that guilt as though he has done something wrong. He internalizes that guilt as a distance between you where you can no longer be intimate emotionally. He internalizes that guilt as you not wanting to be sexual with him and using your spirituality as, or your guilt and shame as some kind of way of pulling away. I want you to consider being on the other side of the experience you're offering. I was saying to Coach Nadine the other day that many of us are not even conscious of the world and the activity going on internally in our minds and our hearts, because we live so outwardly running away from the truth of who we are. Never mind being aware of how we're showing up for other people to experience us. And I want you for a minute to be present with yourself and within yourself and consider how it would feel if a man was carrying so much guilt around being sexual with you, how that would look or feel to your spirit, to your energy, and whether you would want to stay. Relationships are not so hard if we're prepared to be empathetic and to be in the other person's shoes and figure out how they would feel about the whole scenario. And so a man is more likely to withdraw, and you're more likely to lose the relationship that God could have blessed, that relationship that could have been your life partner. And many of us, through guilt and shame, are hemorrhaging, and some of us are even keeping great relationships at bay because of the guilt and shame. We're carrying it on our backs because of the guilt and shame. I want you to be free. I want you to be free. For whom the Son of God has set free is free indeed. Let's all put our hands up and say that the teaching within the Christian community, within the religious community, has actually birthed guilt and shame. And like my friend David Nuri said, when you guilt and shame a Christian, all you get is a guilty and ashamed Christian. That is all you get. And we have resorted to guilting and shaming ourselves and the believers in the church into living more virtuous lives instead of equipping you and giving you the skill set to live the life that is true and authentic to you and to God, and that promotes and flourishes your relationship with God. I am not here to lay down the law. I am here to serve you. My coaches and I are God-fearing women who really have an intimate relationship with God and are desiring to serve you and help you, because we have been through it, are going through it, and have seen so much victory on the other side. But you must alleviate yourself from guilt, shame, and fear, whatever and wherever you are on the spectrum. Whether you've been celibate and abstinent for the last 20 years, or whether you've been sexually active as a born-again believer, we cannot hold the position of faith, love, and grace and guilt, shame, and fear. They cannot coexist, and this cannot possibly be the message that we're sending out into the world. I want us to live free and free indeed. And if you're ready to live free and free indeed, I want you to pick up the phone. I want you to download the Black Swan app and book a call. You can book a 10-minute call, a 5-minute call, a 7-minute call on the app. Simple. All you have to do is download the app, book a call, and on that day, you can speak to one of our coaches who will be willing and able to talk you through what you're going through. We're here for you. I am here for you, and I want you to grow and flourish in your relationships, because something tells me that in 2023, I'm going to have a lot of marriages and engagements on my hands, and that is really by tweaking these narratives and these stories. I look forward to seeing you on my next video, but in the meantime, do take care of you. Love you lots. Bye-bye now. Well done for coming to the end of this video. What I want to ask you is, what have you learned? What is your takeaway? And what are you going to start practicing right away? Those 3 things are how you are going to get the best out of every class here at the Black Swan Relationship Academy. Please put it in the comments so that we can all have a look. So I can have a look, the coaches can have a look, and I promise you, we read every comment. We may not be able to reply to every comment, but we read all of your comments, and we want to see how you are growing. And we will see you on the next video.